The moment my own mother told me she was ashamed I was her son, I knew my wife had won. She had taken everything from me: my reputation, my friends, my family, my business, my entire identity, all with a single lie that spread like wildfire through every corner of my life. I stood in my childhood home, the place where I had learned to walk and talk and dream. And I watched my mother close the door in my face like I was a stranger she wanted nothing to do with. Through the window, I could see Diana standing in the living room, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, playing the victim so perfectly that even my own flesh and blood had chosen her over me. But here is the thing about lies. They are like houses built on sand. They look solid and impressive from the outside, but all it takes is one storm to bring the whole thing crashing down. What Diana did not know, what she could not have predicted, was that I was about to become that storm. And by the time I was finished, everyone who had turned their back on me would know exactly what kind of monster they had been protecting. My name is Marcus, and this is the story of how my wife destroyed my life with a lie, and how I made sure she paid for every single tear I shed, every relationship I lost, and every moment I spent wondering if the ground would ever feel solid beneath my feet again. Diana and I met 8 years ago at a charity gala in London. I was there representing my security consulting firm, a company I had built from nothing after leaving the military. She was there with her father, a retired investment banker who still had enough connections to fill a ballroom with people who mattered. Diana was stunning that night. Auburn hair, green eyes that seemed to see right through you, and a smile that made you feel like the only person in the room. We talked for 3 hours straight. She seemed genuinely interested in my story, in how I had grown up in a working-class family in Manchester, joined the army at 18, served 2 tours overseas, and then used my skills and savings to build a business that was now worth millions. She said she admired people who had earned their success rather than inherited it. She said I was refreshing compared to the trust fund types she usually met at these events. Looking back now, I can see how carefully she was studying me. She was learning my weaknesses, my values, my blind spots. She was figuring out exactly how to become the woman I wanted her to be. We were married within a year. The wedding was everything Diana wanted. A massive affair at a country estate with 300 guests and a reception that cost more than my first flat. I did not mind the expense because I was in love. I was so deeply, stupidly in love that I would have given her anything she asked for. For the first few years, things were good. Or at least, I thought they were good. Diana was charming and affectionate in public, the perfect wife for a man building his reputation in business circles. She threw dinner parties that everyone wanted to attend. She remembered the names of clients' children and sent thoughtful gifts on birthdays. She made me look good, and I was grateful for it. But at home things were different. Diana could be cold, distant, critical. She complained about my work hours, about the time I spent with my family and friends, about the fact that I still had relationships from before I met her. She wanted me to herself, she said. She wanted us to build our own world together. Slowly, without realizing it, I began to pull away from the people who had known me longest. My best friend Connor, who I had known since we were 5 years old and who was now my business partner, started getting shorter phone calls and fewer invitations to dinner. My sister Rebecca, who had always been my closest confidant, got visits only on holidays. My parents, who lived just an hour away, went months without seeing me in person. Diana had isolated me, and I had let her do it because I thought it was what love looked like. The cracks started to show about 2 years ago. I noticed Diana was on her phone constantly, texting and emailing at all hours. She said it was for her charity work, the various organizations she volunteered with to fill her time. I believed her because I wanted to believe her. Then I noticed money moving out of our joint accounts. Not huge amounts at first, just a few hundred here and there. Diana said it was for donations, for gifts, for incidental expenses. I believed her because questioning her always led to tears and accusations that I did not trust her. Then I came home early one afternoon and found Diana in our bedroom with a man I did not recognize. They were fully clothed, just sitting on the bed talking. But something about the scene felt wrong. Diana jumped up immediately, her face flushed, and introduced him as a friend from her charity board. He left quickly, and Diana spent the rest of the night reassuring me that nothing inappropriate was happening. I wanted to believe her. So I did. The truth came out 6 months later, but not in the way I expected. And by the time I understood what Diana had really been planning, it was too late to stop the avalanche she had set in motion. It started with a phone call from Connor. He sounded strange, distant, like he was talking to someone he did not really know. He said we needed to meet, that there was something he needed to discuss with me in person. I suggested our usual pub, but he said no, somewhere private. He came to my office after hours when everyone else had gone home. Connor sat across from me, and he could not meet my eyes. He told me that Diana had come to see him. She had been crying, shaking, barely able to speak. She had told him something that she was too afraid to tell anyone else. She had told him that I had been hurting her. I remember the confusion I felt in that moment. Hurting her? I had never laid a hand on Diana. I had never raised my voice to her except in normal arguments that every couple has. I did not understand what she could possibly mean. Connor explained. Diana had told him that for years I had been controlling her, manipulating her, making her feel worthless. She said I monitored her phone and her emails. She said I controlled all the money and gave her an allowance like she was a child. She said I had cut her off from her friends and family. She said I had threatened her, intimidated her, made her afraid to leave. And she said that recently, the abuse had become physical. She had shown Connor bruises on her arms, bruises she said I had given her during an argument about money. I sat there in stunned silence as my best friend, the man who had known me for over 30 years, looked at me like I was a stranger, like I was a monster. I denied everything. I told Connor that none of it was true, that Diana was lying, that I had never hurt her or controlled her or done any of the things she claimed. I begged him to believe me. I told him to think about everything he knew about me, every moment of our friendship, and ask himself if I was capable of what Diana was describing. Connor said he wanted to believe me, but he had seen the bruises. He had seen Diana shaking and crying. He said he did not know what to think, but he needed time to figure it out. He left my office without shaking my hand, and I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. That was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, I discovered that Diana had not just told Connor. She had told everyone. She had woven this story so carefully, so methodically, that by the time I even knew there was a problem, half of my life had already turned against me. She told my parents. My father, a man who had taught me to treat women with respect and honor, could barely look at me. My mother wept and asked where she had gone wrong raising me. They said Diana had shown them evidence, text messages and photos, and a journal documenting years of abuse that had never happened. She told my sister Rebecca. Rebecca, who had always been skeptical of Diana, who had never quite trusted her, believed the story. Diana had been so convincing, so detailed, so emotional in her confession, that even someone who did not like her felt compelled to believe her. She told our mutual friends, one by one, in private conversations where she swore them to secrecy, while knowing full well that secrets like that never stay secret. She told colleagues at my company, people I had worked with for years, who now looked at me with barely concealed disgust. She told her charity boards and her social circles. She told the wives of my business contacts. She told anyone and everyone who would listen. And she did it all while I had no idea it was happening. By the time I understood the scope of what Diana had done, I was already a pariah. People I had known for decades were avoiding my calls. Business relationships that had taken years to build were evaporating overnight. I walked into rooms and felt the atmosphere change, felt people pulling away from me like I was contagious. And Diana played her role perfectly. She stayed in our house, the house I had paid for, claiming she was too afraid to leave but too weak to kick me out. She answered the phone in a trembling voice when friends called to check on her. She posted on social media about the importance of believing survivors and supporting victims of domestic abuse. And everyone assumed she was speaking from personal experience. I tried to fight back. I tried to tell my side of the story. But here is the thing about accusations like this. Once they are out there, once they take root in people's minds, the truth almost does not matter anymore. People do not want to believe they were wrong. People do not want to admit they were manipulated. And there was Diana, so sympathetic, so brave, finally speaking her truth after years of suffering. Who was going to believe the accused abuser over his beautiful, tearful victim? The worst moment came 3 months after Diana's campaign began. I had been staying in a hotel because I could not stand being in the house with her, could not stand watching her perform her victimhood for anyone who stopped by. I had been drinking too much, sleeping too little, trying desperately to figure out how to prove that none of this was true. I drove to my parents' house on a Sunday afternoon. I needed to see my mother, to look her in the eyes and make her understand that I was not the man Diana had described. I rang the doorbell and waited, my heart pounding, rehearsing what I was going to say. My mother opened the door. She looked at me for a long moment, and I saw something in her eyes that I had never seen before. Disgust, disappointment, shame. "I don't know who you are anymore," she said. "I raised you better than this. I don't know how you could do what you did to that poor woman. Mom, please, none of it is true. Diana is lying. I don't know why, but she is lying about everything. Marcus, I saw the evidence. I saw the photos of her bruises. I read the journal entries where she documented what you did to her. Do you think I want to believe my own son is capable of this? I don't, but I cannot ignore what is right in front of my eyes. Let me explain. Let me show you. There is nothing to explain. Diana showed us everything. She showed us the texts where you threatened her. She showed us how you controlled the money and isolated her from everyone who loved her. She showed us the pattern, Marcus, the pattern of a man who abuses his wife. I stood there on the doorstep of my childhood home, tears streaming down my face, and I begged my mother to listen to me. I begged her to give me a chance to defend myself. I begged her to remember who I was, the son she had raised, the man I had always tried to be. She closed the door in my face. Through the window, I could see Diana inside. She was standing in my mother's living room, holding a cup of tea, and she was watching me. And just for a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. A tiny smile, a flash of triumph. That was the moment I understood. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not Diana being confused or oversensitive or mistaken. This was deliberate. This was calculated. This was revenge for something I did not even know I had done. And in that moment, something shifted inside me. The confusion and desperation gave way to something harder, something colder. I was not going to let her win. I was not going to let her destroy me with lies and watch everyone applaud her for doing it. I was going to find out the truth. I was going to expose her for what she really was. And I was going to make her pay for every single moment of suffering she had caused. The first thing I did was hire a private investigator. His name was Tom, a former police detective who had started his own firm after retiring from the force. I told him everything. I told him about Diana's accusations, about the evidence she claimed to have, about the way my entire life had collapsed around me in a matter of weeks. Tom listened without judgment. When I finished, he asked me a simple question. Who benefits from this? I did not understand what he meant at first. He explained. In his experience, when someone fabricates an elaborate story like this, there is always a reason. There is always something they want to gain or something they want to hide. If I could figure out Diana's motive, I could figure out her lies. We started digging. The first thing Tom found was the financial trail. I had thought Diana was taking money from our joint accounts for legitimate expenses. I was wrong. Over the past 3 years, Diana had siphoned nearly £200,000 into accounts I knew nothing about. She had been careful, taking small amounts at irregular intervals, moving money through multiple transfers to obscure the trail. But Tom was thorough, and eventually he traced the money to an offshore account in Diana's name. £200,000. Money I had earned through years of hard work, stolen by the woman I loved and hidden where she thought I would never find it. But that was just the beginning. Tom also found the man I had caught Diana with in our bedroom, the one she had introduced as a friend from her charity board. His name was Oliver Reed, and he was not a philanthropist. He was a financial advisor who specialized in helping wealthy individuals hide assets from their spouses during divorce proceedings. Diana had been working with him for over 2 years, carefully preparing to leave our marriage with as much of my money as she could take. The accusations against me, the elaborate story of abuse, it was all part of a plan. In divorce court, an abuse victim is treated very differently than a woman who simply wants to end her marriage. An abuse victim gets sympathy, protection, priority in asset division. By painting me as a monster, Diana was positioning herself to take everything I had while looking like the hero of her own story. But there was more. There was always more with Diana. Tom discovered that the bruises Diana had shown to everyone, the photographic evidence of my supposed violence, were self-inflicted. He found a receipt for theatrical makeup supplies purchased months before the accusations began. He found a video on Diana's laptop, a video she had apparently made as a practice run, where she carefully applied fake bruises to her arms and admired her handiwork in a mirror. She had staged everything. Every single piece of evidence was fabricated. The journal entries documenting years of abuse, written all at once in a single marathon session, just 2 weeks before she started telling people. Tom found the metadata on the computer files that proved it. The text messages where I supposedly threatened her, doctored screenshots. Tom had a digital forensics expert examine them and found evidence of manipulation. Words changed and contexts altered to make innocent conversations look sinister. The story about me controlling the money and giving her an allowance, a complete fabrication. I had always trusted Diana with our finances. She had access to everything. The only reason she was taking money secretly was because she was planning to leave and wanted to hide her theft. Everything Diana had told everyone, every terrible accusation she had made against me, was a calculated lie designed to destroy my reputation and secure her financial future. I felt vindicated, but I also felt sick. This was the woman I had loved for 8 years. This was the woman I had shared my life with, my bed with, my dreams with. And she had been planning to destroy me the entire time. But knowing the truth was not enough. I needed everyone else to know it too. And I needed to do it carefully, strategically, in a way that Diana could not spin or deny or explain away. The first step was documenting everything. Tom compiled a comprehensive file of all the evidence we had gathered. The financial records showing the stolen money, the receipts for the theatrical makeup, the video of Diana practicing her fake bruises, the metadata proving the journal entries were fabricated, the expert analysis of the doctored text messages. Everything, organized and annotated and ready to present. The second step was legal preparation. I hired a family law solicitor who specialized in cases involving false accusations. Her name was Angela, and she was brilliant, ruthless, and completely unintimidated by Diana's performance. When I showed her the evidence, she nodded grimly and said she had seen this before. She told me that what Diana had done was not just morally reprehensible, it was potentially criminal. Filing false reports and fabricating evidence of abuse could result in serious legal consequences. The third step was the hardest. I had to wait. I had to be patient while Diana continued her campaign against me, while people who used to love me continued to shun me. While my life remained in ruins, I had to let her think she was winning, because the moment she realized I was fighting back, she would adjust her strategy, hide evidence, and make herself harder to catch. So I waited. I kept my head down. I stopped trying to defend myself publicly, because every attempt just seemed to make things worse. I let Diana believe she had broken me, and I watched. She is not a victim, I said. She is a predator. She targeted me, she used me, and when she was ready to leave, she decided to destroy me first so she could take everything I had. Rebecca looked at the evidence again. The video of Diana applying fake bruises, the receipts, the metadata, the doctored messages. This is all real. This is all verified. Every piece of it. My investigator and my solicitor have confirmed everything. Diana fabricated an entire history of abuse that never happened. Rebecca reached across the table and took my hand. I am so sorry, Marcus. I should have believed you. I should have trusted you. You are my brother. I have known you my entire life. And I let a woman I never even liked convince me that you were a monster. It was the first time anyone had apologized. The first time anyone had admitted they were wrong. I sat in that cafe with my sister and I cried, releasing months of pain and isolation and despair. Rebecca promised to help me with our parents. She said she would show them the evidence, explain what Diana had really done, make them understand that they had been manipulated just like everyone else. The next few weeks were difficult, but hopeful. Rebecca worked on our parents while I continued to build my case against Diana. My mother called me one evening, her voice trembling, and she apologized through tears for ever doubting me. My father sent a letter because he said he could not find the words to speak, a letter in which he expressed his shame for believing Diana over his own son and begged my forgiveness. I forgave them. How could I not? Diana was a professional manipulator. She had fooled everyone. The people who loved me were just as much her victims as I was. But not everyone came back so easily. Connor, my best friend and business partner, was harder to reach. He had been one of the first people Diana had targeted, and he had been one of the most convinced of my guilt. When I tried to contact him with the evidence, he refused to meet with me. He said he had already made his decision, and he did not want to be manipulated again. His rejection hurt more than almost anything else. Connor had been my best friend since childhood. We had built our business together. We had been through everything together. And he was not willing to even look at evidence that might prove my innocence. I had to accept that some relationships might never recover. Some people would rather hold on to their original judgment than admit they were wrong. It was painful, but I could not force anyone to believe me. The divorce proceedings moved forward. Angela was brilliant, presenting evidence that Diana had been planning to defraud me for years. The fake abuse allegations were exposed in court. Diana's solicitors tried to object, tried to keep the evidence out, but Angela had done everything by the book. The judge saw everything: the fabricated journal entries, the theatrical makeup receipts, the video, all of it. Diana sat in the courtroom and watched her carefully constructed story fall apart. For the first time, I saw fear on her face. Real fear. Not the performed anxiety she had been displaying for months. She knew she was in trouble. The judge was not kind. He ruled that Diana's behavior constituted fraud and perjury. He dismissed her claims for asset division and instead ordered an investigation into her financial activities. He referred the case to the Crown Prosecution Service for potential criminal charges. And he granted me the divorce on my terms, with Diana receiving nothing. After the hearing, Diana tried to speak to me in the hallway. She was crying again, but this time the tears seemed real. "Marcus, please. You have to understand. I was scared. I was confused. I did not know what I was doing." I looked at her, this woman I had loved and trusted, this woman who had systematically destroyed everything I cared about with her lies. "You knew exactly what you were doing," I said. "You planned this for years. You stole my money. You fabricated evidence. You turned everyone I loved against me. You tried to destroy my life. And now you're going to face the consequences." I walked away, and I did not look back. The financial fraud investigation moved quickly after that. Oliver was arrested and began cooperating with authorities almost immediately. He gave them everything they wanted, including detailed records of Diana's involvement in their schemes. She was arrested 6 weeks after our divorce was finalized. The news made the papers. The same journalists who had given Diana sympathetic coverage when she was playing the victim now wrote stories about her arrest for fraud and fabricating evidence of domestic abuse. The same people who had believed her lies now shared articles about her downfall. I watched it all from a distance. I did not gloat. I did not give interviews. I did not seek attention. I just let the truth do its work, spreading through the same networks that had carried Diana's lies, reaching the same people who had turned their backs on me. Slowly, people started reaching out. Former colleagues who had avoided me sent apologetic emails. Friends who had believed Diana showed up at my door with shame on their faces. Business contacts who had distanced themselves suddenly wanted to reconnect. I accepted some apologies and rejected others. Some people had genuinely been manipulated and deserved forgiveness. Others had enjoyed believing the worst about me, had used the scandal as entertainment, had been too quick to condemn and too slow to question. Those people did not deserve a place in my life. Connor finally reached out about 4 months after Diana's arrest. He wanted to meet. He said he had been wrong, and he wanted to make it right. We met at our usual pub, the one I had suggested months earlier when he first confronted me with Diana's lies. He looked terrible, tired and guilty, and small, in a way I had never seen him. "I do not know what to say," Connor began. "I believed her. I looked at you, my best friend since we were children, and I believed her over you. I cannot understand how I did that." "She was convincing," I said. "She showed you bruises. She cried. She had evidence that looked real. You thought you were protecting a victim. I should have come to you first. I should have given you a chance to explain. But I was so sure, Marcus. She had me so convinced that you were this monster I had never seen. I could not reconcile it with the person I knew. But I thought maybe that was the point. I thought maybe abusers hide their true selves. Some do. I am not one of them. I never hurt Diana. I never controlled her. Everything she told you was a lie. Connor nodded, tears in his eyes. I know that now. I have seen the evidence. I have followed the trial. I know what she did. And I know that I failed you when you needed me most. We sat in silence for a while. Then I made a decision. I am not going to pretend this did not happen, I said. I'm not going to act like everything is fine between us. You believed that I was capable of abusing my wife. That is not something I can just forget. I understand, but you are my oldest friend. We have been through too much together for me to throw that away. So I am willing to try to rebuild. It will take time. It will not be easy. But if you are willing to put in the work, so am I. Connor reached across the table and gripped my hand. Whatever it takes, however long it takes. I am here. Rebuilding my life took about 2 years. I reconnected with my family and repaired those relationships. I rebuilt my business, which had suffered during the scandal, but was now recovering. I made new friends and rekindled old friendships with people who had stood by me or genuinely regretted their mistakes. Diana was convicted of fraud, perjury, and perverting the course of justice. She received a 3-year prison sentence. Her assets, including the money she had stolen from me, were seized. Her reputation was destroyed. The charities that had embraced her as a survivor now condemned her as a fraud. The social circles that had protected her now closed their doors. I attended her sentencing hearing, not to gloat, but to witness, to see justice done, to watch her face as the consequences of her choices finally caught up with her. Diana looked at me as she was led out of the courtroom. Her eyes were empty, defeated. She had lost everything. Her money, her freedom, her reputation. Her scheme had backfired spectacularly, leaving her with nothing but the hollow shell of the lies she had constructed. I felt no satisfaction in that moment. No triumph, just a tired sort of relief that it was finally over. Walking out of the courthouse, I passed a group of reporters who wanted a statement. I had avoided the media throughout the entire ordeal, but this time I stopped. I want to say something to anyone who has ever been falsely accused of something they did not do, I said. I know how hopeless it feels. I know how isolating it is when everyone believes the lie and no one will listen to the truth. But the truth has a way of coming out. If you are innocent, do not give up. Document everything. Find people who will help you, and never stop fighting for your name. I walked away from the cameras and into a future that was finally mine again. It has been 3 years now since Diana was convicted. She was released early for good behavior and has disappeared from public life. I do not know where she is, and I do not care. She is no longer a part of my story. I'm stronger now than I was before. I'm more careful about who I trust, more observant of the warning signs I missed with Diana. I'm also more grateful for the people who believed in me when it mattered most, the people who looked at the evidence instead of just accepting the story they were told. My relationship with my family is better than ever. My parents and I talk every week. Rebecca and I are closer than we have been since we were children. My mother still apologizes sometimes, still feels guilty for that moment when she closed the door in my face. I tell her it is okay. I tell her that Diana fooled everyone. I tell her that what matters is that we found our way back to each other. Connor and I are still rebuilding. Our friendship is different now, more cautious, with less of the easy assumption that we knew everything about each other. But it is also deeper in some ways. We have been through something terrible together, even though we were on opposite sides for a while. We survived it. That counts for something. I have started a foundation that supports people who have been falsely accused of crimes. We provide legal resources, investigation services, and emotional support for people going through what I went through. It does not undo what Diana did to me, but it means that my suffering has purpose. Other people do not have to fight alone like I did. Sometimes I think about the person I was before all of this happened. The trusting husband who believed his wife. The successful businessman who thought his reputation was secure. The son and brother and friend who assumed his relationships could withstand anything. That person is gone. In his place is someone harder, more realistic, but also more resilient. I know now that people can be more manipulative than you ever imagine. I know that the truth is not always enough to protect you. I know that fighting back is not optional when someone is trying to destroy you. But I also know that justice is possible. That lies, no matter how elaborate, cannot survive forever. That the people who love you will find their way back if you give them the chance. Diana tried to take everything from me. For a while she succeeded, but in the end, she lost everything instead. Her money, her freedom, her reputation, her carefully constructed life. All of it collapsed under the weight of her own deceptions. And I'm still here, still standing, still building, still moving forward. That is the story of how my wife's lie turned everyone against me, and how I lost everything. But it is also the story of how I got it back. Every relationship, every piece of my reputation, every ounce of self-respect that Diana tried to steal from me. The truth came out. It always does. And now everyone knows exactly who the real monster in this story was. It was never me. It was always her. And now the whole world knows it.